What's up, y'all? How's it going? Welcome to another TakeBackSpace live. Here we got going some Jupiter. What am I talking about? I hope everybody's doing great. Happy Friday. Just settling down and realizing how quickly Jupiter is rising nowadays. So it's 6:47 p.m. on the East Coast, Central Florida. Kind of hot again today. I see Ellie Wynn. It's so great to see you. I was thinking about you, mentioned you in the last stream. I was wondering when you'd show up. I'm glad I got on tonight. Had plans and then they got canceled, and so I decided to get on here. It was an amazing day watching some crazy videos, synchronistic, serendipitous, coincidental, and probably cosmically meaningful videos, but I'll tell you all about it in a second. Let me say hi to everybody. How have you been, Ellie? I hope safe and happy. I missed you. DJ at MacroSun, what's going on? Nice to see you. AK John 74, what's happening? Yeah, I streamed a couple of times last weekend, and then this week got busy again, and I'm back for another one. I see Noelia, what's happening? Welcome, evening. So yeah, we got some Jupiter in the house. Let me know if you can hear me clearly, or is it too loud, is it too low? Remember to hit 4K so you can get that crispy detail. Of course, we got Jupiter, and I'm gonna put up some labels here of the moons. Yeah, craziest video today, Rupert Sheldrake, you know, I've talked about him a lot. And of course, morphic resonance. And can you sense if somebody's looking at you? And of course, he was a contemporary of Terence McKenna. And so I've been following Rupert for a lot of years. I've mentioned him maybe on every single TakeBackSpace stream. And today, of all things, not only was he talking about, of course, the field theory and morphic resonance, but talking about, you know, how we see, how optics work, how the eye works. This is something I've talked about so many times. It's such a curiosity of mine. It's so important, so interesting how the eyes actually work, and the fact that we make our eyes, and the fact that we make our world with our eyes too. So we have this relationship with our environment or our field. So I want to talk about that, but not only was he talking about that, but he was also talking about Kepler's Somnium, which is so cool because I've also on this channel mentioned Kepler's Somnium. It's a book by Johannes Kepler, one of our early astronomers in the early 1600s. Wrote this kind of diary, novel, mini novella about this guy goes and ends up with Tycho Brahe on this kind of adventure where they ultimately transfer their bodies to the moon during an eclipse through this tunnel by balling up their bodies into a ball and going through an electromagnetic tunnel so that they wouldn't burn. It was almost, you know, a fantasy of traveling to the moon through a portal, ending up on the moon and describing what it was like to be there. And I've read bits and pieces of it on the stream years ago. So let me know if you remember Kepler's Somnium. But of course, to listen to Rupert Sheldrake talk about it is amazing today, completely surprising, and I don't know, it just felt great to finally hear him talk about something like that. Just such an esoteric pull. And then there's this other channel called the Be Here Now Network, all the whole Ram Dass stuff. And of course, they have Alan Watts, and they have Jack Kornfield, and they have a bunch of different people. But the guy that was talking today, they had this video about the resonance field, and they were talking, this guy actually went and hung out with Rupert Sheldrake, and he brought up Rupert Sheldrake in this conversation. So it was this kind of double whammy where I was listening to Rupert, and then Rupert put up two videos today. The other one being in this amazing video on how, I guess you could call the corruptness of science and academia and testing theories in general, and how papers are written, how papers are tested. So I'd recommend going and checking out Rupert's videos. Absolutely amazing. I see the Gnostic Chef. What's going on, Chef? Great to see you. How am I doing? I've been active. Yeah, just finally. I mean, this year was so so busy and filled with all these different visits from family and friends. It was a different kind of year, so I'd put away all the scope gear and put away the computer also. I had to buy a new computer. So by the time I got everything set up, November had rolled around, but I'm back again. Yeah, all right. So much to talk about, and not just that, realizing like this conversation, listening to Rupert today, and listening to Eileen McCusick yesterday and the day before, and then listening to the Be Here Now network today, of course, all the Alan Watts stuff that I've been catching up on, is like that really people have not actually put everything together in this kind of physics, metaphysics, philosophy, resonance, unified field, and also kind of embracing what we have right now as a science, this cosmology that embraces Einstein and Newton and Maxwell. And there are things that I discovered this past week which are actually really interesting about dark matter and dark energy and what people really think they are, and how the semantics and the language around it can be very misleading and confusing, maybe on purpose. But the fact that I listened to this guy talk about dark matter and dark energy, and he mentioned this thing where he's like, well, when dark matter filaments intertwine, then it creates stars. And I was like, I've never heard that before. That's awesome. That they're basically talking about filaments intercrossing and twirling and creating Z-pinches, but they're using dark matter and dark energy and dark matter filaments to describe this. And I thought, it's really just that we're all talking about the same thing, and ultimately the evolution of cosmology, physics, metaphysics, and the merger of all of it. I see Red Rum. What's going on? What's up? Good to see you. And thanks, Ellie. Yeah, it was a different kind of year. I kind of let you all know that I would be a little bit sporadic, but maybe not that sporadic. Everyone was like, "Are you still alive?" But yeah, it's kind of just like an all or nothing thing with TakeBackSpace. I'm either on this computer with this telescope, or I'm just, out of sight, out of mind, because it is all encompassing when I think about this stuff. And when, of course, when you set up the scope and you kind of dig in, every time it's like this big ordeal, which I absolutely love, but it still is a big ordeal. All right, let's see. So, has anyone checked out the videos by Rupert Sheldrake, and do you want me to talk about that stuff? Because that's what I want to talk about tonight. Just how we actually see things with our eyes. It's amazing because he talked about almost exactly what I talk about. He's like, common understanding about optics is such that we think light falls into the eye. It just falls into our through our iris. Photons just bounce off of like a dog, and then they just fall in, plop in by themselves. We don't do anything, and then it inverts on the back of the retina, and then the optic nerve sends signals into the brain, and in our mind, inside our skull, we have a vision of things. I think a lot of people think that way because of the way it's been taught. Now, Rupert was saying that around the world, people think that the eyes actually return the favor and project outwards. But I would say that it's even more obvious than that, because the eyes are constantly, the whole body is emanating radiation and vision entanglement with the field in this vortexial, conical field of vision with very precise geometry. And the two pinpoints of our eyes converge into this very powerful, like binocular laser beam of emitters of radiation. And this radiation interacts with the field and creates what we see. And it's a back and forth thing. It's not just one way, right? It's, of course, light is reflected at us by every object in the solar system, from every Planck unit, infinitesimally tiny, tiny, tiny unit of absolute space, to the largest bodies, all reflecting their own energy, their own signature of resonance. And we ourselves are emanating our own signature of resonance. And this is how we quantum entangle and create an omnidirectional field of sense, of sensorial perception. But our eyes specifically have these two cones coming out of them and creating the field of view that we see. And within this field of view, as explained by Dan Winter, explained by many other people, that you have this spiraling, the chirality of energy coming out from our eyes in this very beautifully mathematical Planck times the golden ratio, or Planck times the golden mean, or something like that, according to Dan Winter. But basically, a cascade of a very naturally geometric array goes into the field and intertwines with the field in every possible light. So the tiniest little dust particle to the computer, to the telescope, to space. We're creating an entangled web of projection in real time, as a cascading field inwards and outwards from the eye into the field and the field into the eye. So it's a complete dance between our eyes, or our senses, and the field. It's not just one way, and it's also not things falling into our eye. So Rupert Sheldrake saying that specifically is kind of incredible after all these years. Yep. Let's see. Marky Rizzo, what's happening? Hola. Yeah, so Rupert, crazy. So that's one of the things he was talking about, where he's like, he was actually referencing, I think this guy named Kramer, maybe, Cramer, who was talking about this two-way directionality of optics, maybe in the 70s or something. Maybe I'm wrong. Something to that degree, where, to that effect, where this guy had already kind of done studies and proposed this handshake. Yeah, that's what it was called, a handshake between our eyes and our environment. So our eyes send out signals, and it creates this symbiotic resonance with our environment. And this is what we think of as seeing. If you take that further, seeing is believing. That sounds cliched, but it really kind of is true, because ultimately, and furthermore, it's actually, this is the observer effect, right, that they talk about in quantum mechanics, where people are fundamentally confused by the fact that the particle wave duality experiment or paradox exists, like that there's a problem with the whole thing. But in fact, if you take out the observer, or the conscious observer of this experiment, then this experiment is not what they say it is. I mean, I guess I don't want to propose it that way. I just want to say that, like, they're always confused by the observer effect, but it's because they don't realize that the eyes and the whole body is sending out emission into the field, and that emission is changing up tiny photonic radiation to the effect where they're like, well, this is being changed, but experiments don't happen in a vacuum. They happen within etheric plasma, which in and of itself is everything. So an experiment happening within the whole system is the system, just like you are your blood and your bones and your skin. And I think that's why we have this, I guess, I also don't want to frame science in like this crisis or paradox. I don't think it really is that. I think, in fact, a lot of the science that we have is really, really on point, but there's a perspective shift that can happen that can evolve it 10x or 20x. And what that is one, embracing the field as part of the whole, so it's self and field, but also realizing that consciousness and our power is right there in front of us, which is just deciding that, yeah, we of course are creating our reality in real time. So it's not a hallucination. I mean, I guess I'm talking about a lot of different things, but because Rupert was also talking about these same things, and I was like, gosh, it's so refreshing. I mean, because I've been talking about Rupert, but he was like, what was he saying? I'm trying to remember exactly, but actually, let me take a little break here. I'll play a tune and gather my thoughts. I got very excited all of a sudden. Maybe I need to pour myself a drink. I see NGC, hello Spaceling, Fantasy X, what's happening? All right. Yeah, I was talking about some of this Rupert Sheldrake video today. I don't know, NGC, if you saw, but double whammy, 2 videos from Rupert, both of which are, like, I think 2 of his best probably ever, and he was pretty fired up, you can tell. And then I went to the Be Here Now network, and there's this guy talking to Raghu Marcus, and he's talking to, I forget the guy's name, Bruce something, and he's like, I spent days with Rupert Sheldrake just now, and we put it all together. It's like, what? Crazy kind of day. Right, it's 11/11 coming up. It is already 11/11 for you, NGC, right? Yeah. So that's what I was talking about. Really interesting day. Like I said, I got some Jupiter up. I forgot to put the titles. Here we go. That's Jupiter. Where's? Whoops. Jupes. And then we got Ganymede right above Jupiter. We've got Callisto hanging out down here. We got Io all the way at the top. And Europa hanging out at the bottom. I think that looks alright. I guess you all know that's Jupiter, right? Okay. So there we got our Galilean moons. I heard somebody say Ganymede the other day. Is it Ganymede? It could be. I've been saying Ganymede for years, but Ganymede, possibly. Miguel, what's going on? Thanks for the thumbs up. Jupiter, hell yeah. Donald Yates, what's going on? Says Coherence. Yeah, so I streamed a couple of times last weekend, and then the week got very busy. But I've been wanting to come back and talk about some stuff. I actually wanted to stream the Moon and Venus yesterday early morning, but that just didn't happen. It was like 4:30 a.m. and I was dead tired. But that looked amazing if anyone saw that waning crescent and Venus conjunction. All right, let's clear these titles for a moment. Yeah, so let me know what you think about what I'm talking about. Please check out those videos by Rupert. I think you'll really dig them, especially the one about optics, because it's just so funny. It's one of the first times I've heard anyone, really anyone, talk about this exact thing. So to have it be Rupert Sheldrake is pretty incredible. Let's see. Let's put some tracks here. It's been a while since I've grooved with y'all, and let's see what it is. Should I put some of the new stuff or old stuff? I guess everybody loves the old stuff. But I want to play something new, maybe. This is just a little demo, something new. Astrolabium, what's going on, my brother? Hope you're doing well. For this Missed You. It's so weird on SoundCloud that it doesn't let you actually search your own songs only. Like I don't want Missed You by Drake. I don't want Missed You by anyone else. It's so ridiculous. All right, let me play something else while that's happening. Maybe some dark runs here. Can you feel like the way I can feel? I can feel. I can That's pretty hilarious. I have no idea where it is, NGC. I'm sorry. I think it'll show up just randomly here. I know you gotta go, but I'll see what I can do. It's just like, it's ridiculous. I can't search for my own song. So anyway, let me keep talking here because that's kind of why I got on tonight. But Wingsley, how's Wingsley doing, Ellie? I hope well. Yeah, let me know what y'all, I see a couple people in the chat. Let me know if you're going to watch this Rupert video, if you want me to talk some more about optics or consciousness or whatever. But let's see. So what else was I thinking about? So interestingly, like I mentioned earlier, Rupert actually brought up Somnium by Johannes Kepler, which is super fascinating and I think so pertinent. Kind of, if you told me, tell me something like so improbable, I would tell you, I guess, something like that, because it seems like it's catered to me. It sounds like Rupert listened to TakeBackSpace and was like, oh, I'm going to talk about this specifically for you. Can I zoom in on the Galileo orbiter? Huh. I don't know, NGC. I'll have to look that up. You mean the satellite Galileo orbiter or around? Jupiter has the Juno missions. Tell me remind me about the Galileo orbiter, if you don't mind. Yeah, I'm not sure, NGC. I'm trying to, but I still don't see it in the scroll. It's so weird. Scroll past hundreds of tunes here, and it's not coming up. So yeah, the idea of Somnium and how he brought it up is incredible, but really more so that he was thinking about this idea the same way I was thinking about the idea, where you had this sense of magic and wonder when it came to traversing between worlds. And now we have this idea of traveling to the moon, and of course the replicability of landing on the moon. That's another thing, because his other video was talking about replicability of scientific experiments and papers. And so it's pretty fascinating that he came to an interesting conclusion about all this stuff, where he was saying that actually there's a study done by Bayer and this other company that actually showed that a ton of scientific theories or papers or experiments are actually irreplicable, and that they cherry pick results and basically put out papers that only showcase the successful experiments that they show, which you could also argue is kind of how people showcase their art or their food. They pick the best thing. They don't show you all the mistakes. They show you the best thing that they made. And then, yeah, so in science, apparently, they do the same thing when it comes to drug testing. So they'll be like, this drug test went really well, so that's the paper that we'll publish. That's the essence of it. And so Rupert was talking about how this is not really science, and how this really just ruins the whole thing for everybody, because you're not really evolving or being able to test or build anything or move forward. Everything is stagnated because 80% of things are not actually based on experimental results that can be replicated. And then in the comments, somebody said something that I've said in the past about my skepticism around the moon missions, where, again, absolutely could be 100% real, and we landed on the moon, but at the same time, why has no one else been able to do this similar feat? Only us, the US, and only at a certain time period, and that was it. So we'll see with Artemis, and we'll see with future missions as to whether it's replicable, but this is one of those things where somebody wrote a long comment, putting it out there, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting, where not only is Rupert saying things that I really want to hear, but somebody in the comment is saying exactly what I'm thinking right now. So that was funny. And then, of course, he puts out this other video where he's talking with Mark Vernon about how we see with our human eyes, or with our eyes, and what human vision really entails, and what, how it kind of relates to consciousness, and also how it relates to us creating the world. And like I was saying, he referenced this guy named Kramer, who put it forth that the eyes do a handshake with our environment, and it really falls in line with this idea of quantum resonance or quantum entanglement, where our eyes focus a beam of light projecting into the field, and we entangle with the field radiation. And so there's a dance between the human, or the organism, or the Planck quantum string, or a planet, or a solar system, and its field, and that we perceive as sense, and that dance between sense is, I think, what we perceive as consciousness. So it's interesting because I've also been listening to all these guys talk about, who was it? Dennett. I was listening, was it something Dennett, and I was listening to Sapolsky, and I was listening to Michael Levin and Bernardo Kastrup, and how they were talking about this idea that we don't have free will. It's really not about the self. It's really about, the structure and what we did in the past, and how that dictates what we are, in this kind of determinism and emergence argument, which, again, in and of itself is not completely wrong, I don't think, but I think it's only one part of it, really. I think it's really missing out on the fact that every individual aperture of God, or the field, or the quantum state of being, is important within the structure, because without us, or without the self resonating into the field, we would have no sense of consciousness. So we were huge, like an integral part of it. And at the same time, the field, where I think we store memories, and we also resonate with our environment, this field is, I don't want to maybe say only standing waves, but it's an etheric field, a medium, which transmits and also holds and stores information across generations, across bodies, across bacteria, across space. And I think that's really fundamental to the whole thing. And I feel like what I'm saying, I'm sure I'm rambling a little bit to many people, because I'm all over the place. There are a lot of ideas in this one concept. But at the same time, I feel like I'm also able to say more decisive things, maybe. Like, Rupert doesn't really have a lot of proponents who are so versed in his work that when they speak to him, they can work with him to augment his thinking. And I realized that today. I'm like, this guy's like in his 80s, and he's having these conversations where he is, in a sense, has to really reiterate from the ground up what like morphic resonance is, and what he thinks about all this stuff. And that is like just mind-blowing, right? Because he's one of the few proponents of these ideas. Dapple Ben, what's going on? Long time. Says Daniel Dennett daringly deems drowning dumplings donuts. Nice. Daniel Dennett, thank you. Donald Yates says, Eileen McCusick just had a live Sonic Sunday on Coherence. It was really good. Yep, I watched that. I love what she's doing. She's completely coming into her own, and her channel has over like 35,000 followers. I love that I feel like I've been watching her for so long, and it's amazing to see her flourish and for people to get it. And of course, people are getting it on this whole other level, right, where it's very biological and emotional and guttural, and they're really connecting with her in this yogic sense and breath work. But when I listen to her, I also think about like how she really defined this human biofield in a sense that was like spot on. And so if you merge her thinking with Rupert Sheldrake and Alan Watts, you get the whole picture. I mean, of course, we have other people who talk about the math of it. You have like Dan Winter, of course, and Nassim Haramein, and others who talk about like specifically how the math and the spirals, and Buddy Daugherty, of course, talks about chirality and stuff. Let me quickly adjust this image here. But that's the general gist of my Friday. A lot of big brain stuff, but very validating in terms of what I've been talking about and thinking about for years. Awesome to see Rupert Sheldrake say Somnium. Blew my mind today. So that was super freaking cool. Let's see. Gonna throw on a tune here. I gotta run and make myself another drink, because it's that kind of night. Back in a couple.
Some lacking love, what mystery or love? In between the record, I found light had turned to dust. Rockets on the beach, oh, when you just went to leave. I believe what's told, our story carries out. Your breath so inspiring. Oh, it's nothing like you thought it would. One day there's nothing left to prove. All this love we find, falling into face with you. Long enough and I'm gonna lose my mind. Laying out the evidence, uncover the shock this time. Lightning is a fire. Say you to love for so long. Oh, lightning is a fire. Lights in the distance, I walk slowly up the stairs. See ahead a lion sit alone upon his bed. Oh, factory beast, I know it's been so long. What time is it? What time is it? I know I will cast sight of it, so go on, inform. Oh, sand is like the mind and scattered soul. I let it go. Sigh, like I'm reaching out. I left my home for 7 miles. We trail along for 7 lives. Let the whole heart sing. We're coming to shock this time. The light doesn't fire. Say you loving for so long. Like there's a fire. There's a fire, fire. There's a fire. There's a fire. Say you burn. Like there's a fire. There's a fire, fire.
Oh, hell yeah. Thanks, Donald. I appreciate that. Donald says, these concepts are difficult to articulate verbally, but my brain gets it. That's why I like listening to you, because you articulate it very well. Thank you. Well, thank you for saying that. I do sometimes feel like I stumble over my words because there are just so many ideas to convey, and I think of a new thought. So my speech is also percolating as I'm conveying the ideas, but I have been working on those slides, like I said, to kind of help me consolidate and create some more coherence in terms of what I want to convey. Because ultimately, this is really a theory of all things, right? This is not just a theory of everything, it's a theory of nothing and something. So it's the counter space and the space. It's the matter and antimatter. It's all the contemporary cosmology, and it's the advancement of it. It's all the conspiracies and the rationale for them. It's the self and the other. It's the explanation of all theology and the rationale of that from a physical perspective. It's relating the metaphysical and the Hindu and Zen and Buddhism to quantum mechanics. it's relating the self and the philosophy and ethics of self to geometry. It's this very complex thing, in fact. And I don't know how, like, a lot of people say they have these experiences, these psychedelic experiences, but for me it was really just watching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of videos and reading all these different texts and really just absorbing things over time that ultimately it clicked. It's like, no, these answers are already there, but you just have to embrace them, right? The answers are not as hidden as people may think, but they are very complicated and take extreme ability to be flexible and absorb. They take some absorption for sure. So let's see. NGC says, I listened, showered while I got dressed. Hee hee. Well, I got a track for you before you go out the door. I think this is it. Oh yeah.
Did you hear that I missed you?
Quick interlude.
Now you're here, let me kiss you. Did you hear that I missed you? Now you're here, let me taste you. Did you hear that I missed you? Now you're here, let me taste you. Did you hear that I missed you? Now you're here. Did you hear that I missed you? Now you're here, let me taste you. Let me taste you. Underneath the stars, counting numbers. Fly above the moon, feel you new. To the dark beyond, saw your umbra. Across the nature zone, so electric blue. Underneath the stars, did you hear that I missed you? Fly above the moon. Now you're here, let me kiss you. Did you hear that I missed you? Beyond. Now you're here, let me kiss you. Did you hear that I missed you? Underneath the stars. Take time to believe in the world, fill it up with everything you can for. Take time to believe in the world, fill it up with everyone you love. Take time to believe in the world, fill it up with everyone you care for. Take time to believe in the world, fill it up with everyone you love. Underneath the stars, did you hear that I missed you? Fly above the moon. Now you're here, let me kiss you. Did you hear that I missed you? Beyond. Now you're here, let me kiss you. Did you hear that I missed you? Underneath the stars.
All right, there we go. A little bit of missed ya. Now, NGC, you can leave if you need to. Please don't, but if you have to go, I know. Anyway, I'm zoomed in here on Jupiter. It's we can't see the detail of the planet because I still want to see the moons. But I will try and get us a little bit of detail before I end the stream. Jupiter's rising so early, so I only have another like 15-20 minutes before it hits the top of my window, but I'll go on for a bit longer. We'll watch some stars and talk about some of this resonance stuff. So, like I said, watched a ton of Rupert Sheldrake today, but of course I've been thinking about integration of all these theories and how to really present it properly. Yo, Shockwave in the chat. What's happening, brother? And Red Rum talking about how DMT says, depends on what you do, because I did DMT and oh boy, I was in another universe. So I can't say that I've done DMT. Granted, of course, I've been in some pretty crazy situations that release a certain type of experience that is similar to that, but not exactly the same as taking it directly. But I will say that, thinking about it in terms of having taken other psychedelics, that we entered a different version of the field, right? The boundaries dissolve and we enter what this field may look like on the inverse, counter space, and allow the mind to wander into these fields. I think it happens when we dream. I think it happens when we trip. I think it happens when we die. Any type of alternate experience is what it is, I think. Methinks. So I feel like you could keep saying forever that, oh, we will never know, and maybe it's this or maybe it's that, but what do you really know? You know that you sleep and you dream. and there's a range of experiences there. And then you also have people who've had NDEs, near-death experiences, or being dead and coming back, or whatever you want to call it. People have had enlightened experiences, DMT experiences, psychedelic experiences. There's a gamut. However, I feel like they all similarly have the same types of parameters. They have structured geometry, they have people and characters in them, there are stories, there's light, there's fractals, very consistent effects, even though each person's or entity's experience is varied. I feel it's a similar type of reasoning that you would have a different type of birth, different type of death, different type of life cycle. However, we all share very similar habits and traits, but they're all ever so slightly different. Just like a little bit of salt in each of us changes up the resonance ever so slightly. But in a sense, every creature, every entity, every pattern is really in essence the same thing on a fractal level. Let's see, Shockwave says, we live in the morphogenic field. Yep, we do. Shockwave, I was talking about Rupert Sheldrake. He dropped a couple of really killer videos today. Was really digging that, talked about optics. And I realized, again, so few people talk about this. I looked up hundreds of different videos and just hours looking for explanations of optics, human optics, mathematical optics, rays coming out of the eyes, Fibonacci sequence, all this stuff. It's really not out there. Not many people are really talking about the fact that the eyes very likely emit a type of radiation. This type of radiation is very highly focused because we have these two eyes emitting it from our skull, and our skull is emitting radiation and heat. And this heat gets focused through our eye sockets and then through the tiny point through this funnel at the center of our eye and squeezed out like a little syringe into the field. And then not only that, we focus our two eyes into a center, so these two eyes at a very, you want to say sacred geometry, but inherent geometry, focus this beam and create what we see around us in a conical field of vision, field of view. But of course, our whole body is emitting radiation, therefore we have an omnidirectional sensorial field too. So it's not just that we need to see something to feel something. We feel things in our field because our whole field is energetic, but we see things clearly because our eyes are actually emitting this radiation. Let's see. NGC says, sit in a really dark room with your eyes open. And if you sit long enough, things get weird. I bet. I think I used to do that as a teenager. But yeah, I mean, your mind kind of starts to take over. But I still think we have inherent patterns still. Even in darkness, you start seeing patterns that we recognize. Polygons, angles, faces, symmetry, Rorschach blots, etc. Familiar patterns is... The thing is, the reason we see and feel familiar patterns is because we're resonating with self. Our field is still self, and the entire field, the whole cosmic field, is also self. That's how we see things, and we're able to resonate because we're resonating with ourselves. Let's see. Shockwave, that's how Beethoven woke up with a full symphony in his brain. Actually, who's saying that? I think Rupert was also saying that about how Stephen Hawking, because he was so limited in what his capacity was for physical activity or physical just existence, that he was able to internalize and really project out his mind into the field and just get these great ideas. Now, what you think of Stephen Hawking may vary, but still it was interesting. Ryan in North Carolina, much love. What's going on? Welcome, welcome. NGC, gotta go. Take care. I'll see you on the next one. Have fun wherever you're going. Let's see. Let's see. Shockwave says, DMT should allow you to ask questions and have them answered. So that's an interesting thing because I've definitely been around people who have taken DMT and ayahuasca, and how they kind of go into these experiences is is in search, always searching, always seeking this either answer or confirmation, or they don't really know why they're going into a trip. And something that, and this is not to insult anyone who takes psychedelics, because I love psychedelics, but the idea that when Alan Watts said something pertinent to this, he said, if you go into a trip not knowing what you're looking for, you're not going to come out with anything substantial. And I don't know if that's true for everybody. I think some people just need a jolt, right? Or some do it for fun. I don't think you shouldn't just do it for fun. But I do think that the most enlightened that I feel I became was, again, when after I put together all these, I was like, oh, Alan Watts, oh, and Rupert Sheldrake, oh, and Electric Universe, okay. These all kind of sound like they are parts of the same thing. And then it got further and further along where I was like, oh, we rail against these systems, and we question why there's evil in the world. We question why there's darkness. And then you realize that these things are necessary for a functional system, right? And that's even more enlightenment. So I feel like, I don't want to say drugs don't give you those tools, but sometimes you can just find the answer without, I don't know. I don't want to say that, actually. That's not maybe true. I'm not sure about that. Maybe drugs are part of the answer. But I would say that that this type of thinking is shared by many, depending on, regardless of whether you're on substance or not, because it's really the paradigm of self-reflection, of thinking about the self, about how your eyes work, about how the sensory field works, about how the planets work. Donald Yates says, spontaneous, coherent emergence in the collective consciousness. That's spontaneous, coherent emergence. Yeah, so interestingly, I wanted to be able to sketch. Remember, I used to be able to sketch, and I tried it tonight, and for some reason, my overlay is not working correctly, so I'll have to figure that out. But so what we experience, these kind of photon packets, these instances of reality, are just instances, but they're layered. So you have this cascade of layering forward and backward in our field. And I think that there is a sense of, I don't know, how do I explain this? Because I want to be able to draw this, but if you just imagine that, I don't know, I want to think about how I explain this, because today Rupert was talking about this idea that we look, the energy that emits from our eyes looks back in time, and the reality that comes into our eyes is going forward in time. And based on this idea of the positron and how there are certain quantum effects, or light can be measured in a negative and positive sense using mathematics, but in our reality, only positive forward-leaning time is mentioned, and negative time is always just ignored as this kind of just imaginary number. However, if you think about the fact that our field is a storage device, so our onion skin, or our apple flesh, or our Van Allen radiation belts around the human body, so these toroidal fields, can store information, and they can also create. They are basically reality, like it's a field of coherent emergence of collective consciousness, right? So it's not just our consciousness, it's bacterial consciousness creating little tiny toroidal fields. It's my computer creating its resonant field. Anything that radiates or reflects light has a field. And some are weaker fields, some are larger fields. And the reason everything is the same is because it's all really ultimately light. It's all the same unified field. And every single object, every single unit is a different type of resonance. In the same way that we have a population of 8 billion where everybody pretty much looks the same and is slightly different. Ryan, you have a great night. Thanks for stopping by for a moment, though. Appreciate you. Let's see. Red Rum says, I want to try ayahuasca. I had the opportunity to try peyote in Vegas a few years ago, but chickened out. Yeah, I've kind of not gone the mile on those either. like, nor DMT, because I just thought, like, after a couple of mushrooms, you kind of see see most of the things you want to see. At least I saw the things that I wanted to see, and it made a lot more sense in terms of like visually being able to see the field. And it's definitely is interesting to the idea of living in that state of psychedelia, like either microdosing or doing something like that. But I don't really adhere to that right now, simply because like I already live in that state of the field without it, and maybe I don't need it right now. You know, it's one of those things, like Alan Watts says, only go to those substances if you really need it, with intention, right? Okay, so what shall I do here? I wanted to show Jupiter a little closer. Let me switch up the lens here. I'll play a tune, and I'll be right back. Love reading your comments, so thanks for sharing. And here's some fine fixer for you. Back in a second.
I got nature in my soul, like an amateur wound up at the rodeo. We live similar lives, like you were wise, rise divine. We got nature coming home, like an artifact crashing through the dynamo. It's all up to you. Oh, believe it now. It's all up to you. Oh, believe it now. You got nature in your soul, like an architect trapped inside a tornado. We got scientific knives, oh, like we were wise, but not divine. I would love to see, I would love to see, I would love to see all those promises. I would love to see, I would love to see, I would love to see all those promises. Ooh, you're taking a good hold of the heart. Don't hide it all away. No stone left unturned, trying to come away from the city. Oh, I got nature in my soul, like nova's coming up the skies. Darling, I was waiting for. I got nature in my soul, like nova's coming up the skies. How creative.
All right, we got some jupes in view. Better than I thought, I think, because it warmed up a little bit. So check it out. We got the Great Red Storm, almost dead center, coming across jupes. And you can still see, I forget which moons, sorry, I think it's, I want to say it's Ganymede and Europa flanking, very dimly right now because I have the contrast set, but I think you can see the nice bands of Jupiter. This is the 11 tonight. You can also see a little bit of the night, like the curly cues of the laminar flow of the crazy ammonia clouds at the top of Jupiter's atmosphere. Now, I know it's not exactly the topic of the show tonight, but I always feel like I need to shout out Jeffrey Walensky, because I think he doesn't have that enough support really for what he talks about in terms of stellar metamorphosis, in terms of the age of Jupiter, the age of the stars, how it all works. So give some love to Jeff Walensky, Wolynski. But he talks about how Jupiter is in this stage where it's ultimately becoming a water world. It's on its way to potentially becoming this water world like Venus or Neptune. And those planets ultimately become things like Earths. So there could be theoretically an Earth being cooked at the center of Jupiter as we speak. So when we talk about finding new worlds like exoplanets or new Earths or Earth-like planets, and the scientists are looking light years away, when really if we take a different view on cosmology, a very simple idea of basically the planets are essentially cooked at the center of stars. They don't just come together by accretion. It's just a simple idea that people are very triggered by, but if you really consider it, it makes a lot more sense that planets cook inside a star and ultimately come to after a star loses its entire atmosphere, then you see the planet. And those planets dry up and become moons. And those moons become asteroids and debris and fall back into stars. But the fact that now we live in an age where people think that planets and moons, like our moon, is a coalescing of matter, like clumps of matter merged together to create Earth and the moon, which just doesn't make any sense actually when you think about it. It makes way more sense that stars, giant ovens, take in all the debris, then they cook a planet at the center, and then this planet ultimately emerges. That's where the water comes from, that's where the life comes from, that's where the recursive fractal growth comes from. Hi there, Mary Quite. Great to see you. Lovely to see you. Rune Thorson, good evening. Nice to see you too. Just in the middle of kind of this thought that I had about, just shouting out Jeff Walensky. Also, like, really appreciating this view that we have of Jupiter, that some of the sharpest views we've seen in a while. Great red storm and lots of amazing flow between the cloud layers. I could go off on a quick tangent here in terms of why Jupiter looks the way it does. The reason it looks the way it does is because it is essentially outlining a Birkeland current. And a Birkeland current, if you imagine it, is an electrical wire surrounded by concentric sheaths of electrical flow. And these sheaths are counter-rotating currents per Donald Scott's electric star model. And that's why you have layering, but you also have counter-rotation. So at every layer, the white layer, the brown layer, white layer, brown layer, you have counter-rotating currents, and the shearing, not the Ed Sheeran, but the shearing between the currents is what creates these flows that rotate, and we see these swirling patterns on Jupiter. I think it's a really important thing that no one really talks about, like why does Jupiter look the way it does, and why do you have shearing between the rings? I've listened to so many different panels where they talk about Jupiter, and they completely are just like baffled by everything about Jupiter. All the contemporary scientists are basically completely baffled by lightning on Jupiter. They're baffled by the laminar flow on Jupiter. And if you know this term, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's a diochatron or dioctron instability. And it's essentially what we see at the poles of Saturn and Jupiter, these kind of hexagonal storms that are perpetual, that seem perpetual. And at every corner of the hexagon, every vertex, you have this swirling tornadic vortex. And we see these tiny diochatron instabilities in all forms of nature at different scales, but the flow that you see, the shearing between these layers, is what creates these flows. And the reason things flow is because they are along filamentary counter-rotating structures. That's really the underlying structure of our human body. If you got rid of all the flesh and bone and skin, you got down to the nervous system. What does the nervous system outline? That outlines a filamentary dendritic structure that you could really outline along a hypotrochoid or an hourglass shape. We even call people hourglass. And a toroidal shape, which is around our body. So around Jupiter, we have a toroidal shape. We also have a hypotrochoid, or an hourglass shape, going through the center of Jupiter. And Jupiter itself funnels information in and around through the top and bottom through the poles. And this outlines a Birkeland current at different junctures. So Jupiter, being a Z-pinch, creates one of these nodes along a giant Birkeland filament. So that's kind of the idea, just a little tangent on why Jupiter looks the way it does, and how Jupiter seems to be this really big mystery right now, but in fact, this is the type of structure, planet, that actually ultimately becomes a water world. It loses its atmosphere. Now it's cooking all this ammonia and hydrogen, liquid metallic hydrogen, at its core. It's creating a core right now, which would be an Earth. And the outsides are basically churning, creating the building blocks for life and raining down ammonia onto the surface, these giant tornadic storms. You have electricity and you have a giant electrical field. And then Jupiter ultimately loses all this field and this atmosphere and crunches down. And then you turn into something like a Venus, not a Venus, sorry, a Neptune or a Uranus, these water worlds, these that look like essentially a planet, but are really an encasement of water, types of water that are turning into the oceans, like freshwater oceans that we have, and there's a saltwater ocean coming in from within. So you have this recursive growth of nested spheres when it comes to the creation of stars and planets. It's a very holistic theory. And when I look at Jupiter now, it gives me so much more promise as to what this could be, as opposed to like, it's a brown dwarf, it's not really a star, but it's not really a planet, and it's very big. We know nothing about it, versus all the stuff that I just told you. And that's just a fraction of it. So let me know what you think. Also wanted to say, like, I know I've been kind of breathing heavily the last few shows. I listened to the shows the other night, and I realized I'm holding my breath a lot when I talk to y'all. Also, I'm like super congested, so I'm not really doing a lot of circular breathing, and I'm talking a lot. So I hope that's not too annoying. But Red Rum, well, I'm Audi 5000, been up since late last night, worked. You have a great night, Red Rum. Always nice to see you. Take care. And catch you on the next one, of course. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, so just really appreciating the shot we have of Jupiter right now. And it's, yeah, I did mention it earlier. It bears repeating. So I watched a couple of mainstream cosmology things because I feel like it's always good to just have a basis as to where things are at. And I did hear somebody say something to the effect of, well, when two dark matter filaments cross, that's how stars are created. And I said, wait, are you kidding me? Like, I've never heard that before. I've never heard people talk about dark matter filaments, right? Dark mode filaments, anybody? Electrical filaments? We're pretty close to electric universe talk with that kind of stuff. And then he was also talking about how there are filaments going through north and south and then equatorially, so crossing. And that's, I think, what we're seeing right here. We see Jupiter with its poles, right? So it has these electrical storms and a diachron instability at its poles. We also have a magnetic field that basically is almost at our doorstep at Earth. It's so giant. And we have an equatorial Birkeland current filament storm that's basically at a right angle to the sphere of Jupiter, and it's this great red storm moving across. So we're seeing an an interlocking of Birkeland filaments in real time. I think that's what's so crazy, is that the science is right there in front of us, and it's just a few words away if you try. Oh, Ellie Wynn, I'm sorry to hear that. I don't know, I thought about all of y'all throughout this year. Ellie, I hope you're okay. Just sending you lots of love. I know it's not easy to get, prognosis or diagnosis, or even just go see a doctor is always so much work, so good luck with that. Hope we can provide a little solace here for you. Let's see. Scrolling. Shockwave. Oh, I see Dagger Spells. What's going on, Dagger Spells? Well, doggone it. I'm so late. Pardon me. Not at all, my love. All good. Welcome. I'm just wishing some love to Ellie and talking about, what was I even talking about? I don't even remember anymore. But Yeah, I was talking about how Jupiter can turn into a water world. I was talking about Jeff Walensky. I was talking about like how mainstream cosmology says dark matter filaments now, and they're very close to. I mean, I think they are basically talking about electric filaments, but they call it all these weird names, you know. Let's see. Oh, dental stuff. Gosh, that sucks. Okay, just reading some comments here. So yeah, let me play a track or two. Keep the vibes going. It's a Friday night, y'all. It's still early. It's like it's barely 8 o'clock. And I wish we had some moon tonight, but the moon is close to a new moon, and soon we'll have the last cycle. I think next full moon is going to be an amazing view, so let's plan on doing that for sure. We'll schedule that one. And I was looking at some other conjunctions and seeing what we could do. The other thing I was also starting to prep for is potentially next year doing the solar eclipse and maybe getting a proper solar filter for that, like a Daystar quark or something like that. So that could be interesting. Mary says, is it true that Saturn is losing a ring? I didn't see that report. Chakra says no, but I would imagine that all ringed planets lose their rings eventually. So it's possible. Who knows if it's really true? It's hard to really tell from our telescope, but yeah, Ellie, of course. Yeah, not fun, I know. But we're back here, so you can come hang out with us and complain if you'd like. I know you don't, but I always have someone. Let's see, what other comments have I missed? That's about it. Let me play a couple of tunes here. Maybe. Alright, here's some foliage. New track coming in. Time for a drink refresher. You can see the shadow of the moon there, I think, for sure. Up on the upper band. Sound
everybody looking for a common appeal. You left your shadow for me. I've been searching in some of the realms, some of the realm. Do what you gotta do, everybody looking for a common appeal. You left your shadow for me. I've been searching for some of the realms, some of the realm. Do what you gotta do, everybody looking for a common appeal. You left your shadow for me. I've been searching for some of the realms, some of the realm. Do what you gotta do, everybody looking for a common appeal. You left your shadow for me. It's true.
Alright, that was some Foley Urge. Sending out healing vibes to Elita and Mary and whoever else is hurting right now or healing. This is what we got to share, creating a conscious, symbiotic, coherent field of care and excitement and energy and creation, even if it's just us right now. So I'll hang out for a bit longer here. This view of Jupiter is pretty killer, I have to say. You can see some nice dark areas even over the Great Red Storm. Those curlicues of laminar flows of the lower dark bands and the Great Red Storm rolling across, kind of like a hurricane going across a band of storms. The band of storms. And then, of course, we got, like, I thought it was the shadow, potentially, of the moon, of, I think it's Europa right now. I don't have Stellarium right in front of me, but it might be Europa. Right across the top middle. It still feels like it might be, but it also could be some of the flows. I see, let's see, Donald Yates says, sometimes when I want to ground myself, I go volcano watching. Iceland on the Reykjavik Peninsula is about to burst, maybe today, another obsession of mine. Oh my goodness. That reminds me of being in Hawaii at Kilauea and feeling like the power of that, the crazy, like surreal energy of volcanic earth and remnants of volcanic eruptions. It was truly remarkable. That's the closest I've been to it. I can imagine it becoming an obsession. I don't know if I could do it necessarily, but that sounds amazing. I'm sure that type of ponderance and walking around there is crazy. So look at this detail coming in. It's remarkable, truly remarkable. So I'm going to repeat it one more time. So this idea of concentric cylinders, right? So if you imagine Jupiter is a spherical, if you unspherized Jupiter and you made it into a cylinder, that's how you can imagine the concentric circles. So one of the cylinders, or the tubes, a very thin tube, is this white middle band, and then then a nested cylinder, a cylinder inside that is the brown band. And then a cylinder inside that is the white band, and a cylinder inside that is the brown band, and so on up until the poles. And this is the outlining of matter, the coalescing of matter and the creation of matter and the alchemy of matter from the atomic structure along a Fibonacci spiral, in not only along the bands of Jupiter, upwards and downwards, as if you imagine it that way, but also left and right, through the red storm. Through the equator, rather, for that word. But yeah, that's the idea. And that's why, not only is Jupiter electrical, but every object, like if you imagine your arm, you took a cross-section of a limb or an onion or an apple, and you'd see the same sort of like concentric cylinder structure. And it's because matter organizes along these, I want to say, these nested cylinders. And then at Z pinches, these cylinders snap off and turn into spheres because of the pressure mediation and, of course, the the attraction repulsion balance, the equilibrium or the stasis that this matter coalesces into in relation to space forces this nested cylindrical structure into a P, or a planet or a planetoid or a sphere. But you still see these nested cylinders of the Birkeland filament, or the Birkeland current rather. So there's a filament at the center and then nested sheaths of electrical current, just like our aurorae around Earth. You see, if you really looked at the videos, you'll see that it's counter-rotating sheaths of plasma. And our bodies are created around counter-rotating spheres, cylinders of plasma. Take a cross-section of a limb and you'll see that it goes from hard substance to thicker substance to thinner substance, thinner substance, thinner substance, and ultimately around the body we have a field, and we are organized matter along electrical filaments. Let's see. Shockwave says it's how particles move and get sorted in the Birkeland current by those concentric rings. Exactly. Mig says, so the truth is I'm fine, almost healed of my lower back pain doing stretching exercise. That's good to hear. Yeah, getting older. Totally get it. Yeah, that's a couple of thoughts. Of course, you know, really we started here with the whole the universe is electric, but it's become so much more than that. Something that was brought up with the Rupert Sheldrake and Mark Vernon dialogue is they were talking about, Mark Vernon brought up the idea of how we look at stars and how the stars basically send this light to us, right? The contemporary understanding is that stars shine light and that light falls into our eyes and we see these stars from hundreds of millions of years ago or billions of years ago. But if you imagine a different way of looking at it, pun unintended, is that we see this and we create this handshake or this sympathetic resonance or this quantum entanglement with what we're seeing. So even when we're looking at the screen and we're looking at Jupiter on the screen, this energy is not separate from the energy of the greater whole, from the etheric plasma in which we experience it. So because we are the plasma experiencing ourselves, and Jupiter is us. That's how I really believe that. So if we look at Jupiter right now, we are actually sending a signal to Jupiter from our eyes. That's how powerful the human experience truly is. And that's why science robs us of what's really enlightening, is why we actually matter. You know, pun unintended there as well. But, you know, like I mentioned, I was listening to Michael Levin and I was listening to Bernardo Kastrup, and a lot of these people come at it from the world is a problem that needs to be solved. Or here's all these theories, but the one problem is this. And I think it's just a weird way to frame what is, at its very premise, an incredible experiential game. They're always very hesitant to say, well, who was the prime mover? Who created the first resonance? And I think the way you really answer that is you ask the question, like, who is making the body right now? Who is making all the cells in your body move? And that's you. So we are the prime mover. Each individual item, unit, Planck unit, person, planet, etc., is itself the original prime mover. So we created the universe, and we are the original resonance. So to say that we can never know that is just to be blind to the fact that you're already that. And I mean, that sounds arrogant, I'm sure, but it makes so much more sense than to say, oh, we can never know. But of course, the same thing with like the observer effect. You can definitely tell that each observer creates a slightly different experiment based on how they see things. So wouldn't it make sense that our eyes actually send out a signal that manipulates things slightly? So people see basically the same thing, but slightly different. Let's see. Yeah, it was super interesting to hear Rupert talk about vision. But again, nobody really talks about optics or how the eye works. It's very rare to hear that. I think it's the frontier science, truly. It's like, who made the body? How does the eye work? How does memory work? What is consciousness? What is the field? And all those answers are pretty much available. They're just a perspective shift away. I tell you this with real confidence because I've listened to so many conversations. I mean, countless conversations between highly intellectual people who really just dance around the obvious, and they never really want to be decisive about it or come to a conclusion. That's not to say that these people are not brilliant, right? They can be brilliant, but it's funny how nobody just looks at the obvious thing and says, oh, it's this thing. So that's what I'm here to do. It's this thing. Here it is. All right. So you can see it's getting a little dimmer, so we're about to hit the top of my window, which is my cue. Thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. And it's so nice to see Ellie and Mary and Shock and Mig and NGC and Donald and Rune, Red Rum. And I'm saying bye early. I'm not signing off just yet, but acknowledging all y'all, Fantasy, etc., Dagger Spells. Let me know what y'all are thinking about for dinner or the weekend. I might stream again tomorrow, maybe with some more songs and more slides, but maybe not. I don't know. I've been kind of just allowing myself to play it by ear. And I will stream the moon through December. That's going to be fun. I plan on hopefully consolidating some of the music and again in the slides into something a little bit more cohesive, so I can take next year off again a little bit. I might take a few months off again, or maybe longer. I don't want everyone to freak out. I'll let you know when I do. But I might travel next year. This year was a lot of reflection and work and planning and setting up for the future, and next year might be like going to the jungle finally. So we'll see. I'll report back. All right, some more tunes here. This one's Think Back Over.
When I think back over your eyes, you're a cornerstone. When I think back over your smile, you're my comfort zone. When I'm in your field, so when I'm in your presence, so when I'm in your field, so no one like you, no two like you and me. Out by the song, a song for us to see. No one like you, no two like you and me. But I feel your soul like seas beyond. I never thought I could trap your heart. It's another lifetime, our chain of stars. So I'll be whatever you want, fall whenever I can, hide whenever you go, scream whenever you need, slow whenever we fall, home in the sun, and our time is just gold. We'll still be together. Oh no. No one like you, no two like you and me. Out by the song, a song for us to see. No one like you, no two like you and me. But I feel your soul like seas beyond. I never want to control your heart. It's another lifetime, no chain of stars. Climb to original source. Only one walls of our place. Down from the rockets below. Oh no, it's one love, it's one
that with some interference. I haven't played that in a while. That was kind of a new one. So yeah, thinking about some dinner, maybe some Japanese. I had some awesome Mexican yesterday, so I'm gonna leave that tonight, Mary. But enchiladas with mole always sounds delicious, especially like maybe like patatas, mole with like chocolate hints, stewed over for 20 hours by some Oaxacan grandma. I'm all in. Let's do it. I actually had mole in Oaxaca, and it was crazy many years ago. Donald Yates says, I'm making salt and pepper sourdough toast. That sounds really awesome, too. Some toast with butter. Oh, my God. Yum. So, yeah, I was thinking about maybe doing the U.S. rails because I love the train. And maybe, Florida to L.A. That might be a cool train trip. And just take my... I was actually thinking there are all these new smart telescopes that are portable, especially like, I don't know, maybe I won't do that, but it feels like a lot of work, but I still thought about it. I was like, it could be cool to take some camera gear and maybe stream from the Northern Rail. So that's an idea that I had. Another one would be to, of course, go to Asia, go to Japan and the Philippines and kind of do that. I've never done that trip before. I've been to Mexico and Hawaii, and I've been to Europe, and I've been north, I've been to Canada, and I've been West Coast as well, but I've always taken the plane, so I think a train ride might be fun. Pack some food, take a laptop and a camera, and just like slum it while I still got some energy. Yeah, New Mexico. Yeah, exactly. Like you can go, you can take the rail all the way north and then to San Fran and then down, go through New Mexico and come back through the south up to Chicago. Could be something like that. Like I've never seen the Rockies really. It's been, yeah, I have that kind of in the back of my mind. It's one of those, I don't say bucket list. I don't have really a bucket list anymore. Once you've been handed the meaning of all things and all reality, I don't think you need a bucket list. You just have experiential plans. But then Japan has always been on my docket too, because like I know a little Japanese. I love the culture. I kind of feel like I would have a blast there. Yeah, that's some thoughts on my travels. But so that's for next year when I finally set myself up to have the ability to travel. It's been kind of trimming down and putting things in storage, throwing so many things away, working out my apartment so it's not such a thing anymore, because that was a lot of work this year. I had I'm not going to talk about it too much, but anyway, everything is kind of nicely settled right now, so I feel like I could actually travel. That's my thoughts. So let's see, maybe tonight I'll have something with rice and tea, maybe some green tea, and try and be a little bit healthy. So yeah, y'all, please check out those Rupert videos, Rupert Sheldrake, if that's your bag. If not, it's fine. Also, like I mentioned, the Be Here Now network is pretty cool. Today's video, the guy talking about meeting with Rupert Sheldrake was really just so pertinent to having listened to Rupert and then got that video, so it was pretty fun. And always lovely to see my spacelings. I shouted all of y'all out, but especially Ellie and Mary, and all of you especially. No one is, I love you all equally, my children. Just kidding. Yeah. So Ellie says, love trains, always intrigued by Japan. Yeah, I mean, and the food and just, I don't know, there's something about it that I feel there's my calling. All right, I'm getting a little spacey. That means I need some salt and some protein. So we'll say goodnight to Jupiter. Thank you, Jupiter, for sharing your time with us. We got to see some really nice detail tonight on the 11. Talked about concentric cylinders of energy plasma. That's why we have the counter-rotating rings of Jupiter. Of course, Jupiter's electric. Of course, it's conscious. Of course, it's aware of its moons, right? Jupiter is aware of Ganymede or Callisto. Jupiter absolutely knows where its children are. So leave you with that. And then what else do we got? And then, yeah, I talked about how vision is a resonance, right? we don't just allow photons to fall into our eyes, you know, we have a big role to play in vision. So we dance with our field, and we create these sympathetic resonances and non-sympathetic resonances, and this is the conical field of view. It's a very precise, and also has a little bit of salt in it. It's always turbulent. It's extremely precise and somewhat turbulent. The Yetzer Hara. Daggerspell says, lived all over the world. I still want to go to Iceland or Switzerland. Yeah, I mean, both super cool sounding. I haven't been to either. But I have been to, you know, I went to Belgium, I went to Amsterdam, you know, the obvious things you do when you're 20. Happy 11/11 to y'all. Donald Yates says that. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Mary, Dagger, Ellie, and everyone else. Shockwave, hope you have a great night. So yeah, let's play the, had spinach paneer. That sounds good, Ellie. Maybe I'll get some Indian food. And some naan, some paneer. All right, here's Catch for y'all, and maybe I'll catch you tomorrow or the day after. Much love. Spread the word, spread the wisdom, and stay safe. Mr. Captain signing off on another space stream. Bon nuit, everybody. Ciao.
I left home at 17. Couldn't tell you if I was living a dream. What could I do? For a while I played the field. How could I prove the hidden yield without the blues to feel? My heart was cool and left no residue. Catch me if you fall, catch me when you're low. Look goes high and high, as friends used to know. Catch you when you fall, catch you when you're low. I love you, take a good look, it's a simulation. Wake up, it's solitary. Wake up, it's imaginary. And don't you know, your life is worth more than what you have, take a good look, it's a simulation. Wake up, it's solitary. Wake up, it's imaginary.